Hi everyone, welcome to the Reina teachings. My name is Lori Camacho, Trance Channel to a beautiful being named Reina. Today I wanted to answer a question that I have been asked many times. I know often you come here to hear a message from Reina, and we will still be doing that. But I'm going to be answering some questions sometimes too that all of you send in to email, or you might even ask them here on the YouTube channel. And before I get into it, I will just say like and subscribe down below. It helps me to keep making more videos for you on spirituality, clairvoyancy, channeling, and many other spiritual subjects. Now that we got that out of the way, the question that I'm asked often is, how did you come to channel Reina? And this is a loaded question for me. It was a whole entire process for me. And so I have to tell a story basically in order to answer that question. So I will put this in a book at some point with more details. To answer the question, I started hearing voices, 3 voices in particular, when I was a child. I don't remember how old I was. It seemed like it was just always happening. These 3 voices, 2 were male and 1 was female. And I would hear them talking about me every single night and every morning as I was waking up. Sometimes I could hear what they were saying, and sometimes I couldn't hear what they were saying. There was more like a muffled sound, but I really came to rely on those voices. I had a very abusive childhood, and so sometimes those voices would tell me what to expect and maybe how I needed to act the next day and things like that. So that's how channeling really started for me at a very, very young age. Also, my father was killed when I was 9 years old. So that opened me further to, the possibility of spirits and just that things happen to people. So it was very sudden, and he actually came into my bedroom in the middle of his murder. So nobody knew what was happening. And I was 9 years old, so I was, freaked out. I was scared. I didn't know what was happening. But after that, what was so powerful about that moment for me is never again could an adult tell me that spirit was not real. From that moment forward, I knew without a doubt spirit is real. When people die, they are on the other side and they don't go anywhere. So I knew that for a fact. I continued to hear the voices throughout my childhood. Then one morning when I was 15, I woke up, and usually when my feet hit the floor, they would stop. I wouldn't hear it anymore. But on this morning, they kept talking to me. And I got in the shower, I got ready for school. They kept following me, talking to me. They followed me all the way to the bus stop. So then when I got on the bus stop, or on the bus, I took out a pen and a paper and I wrote down what I was hearing. So I did my very first channeled writing. I don't have it. I wish I had kept it, but I was a kid. I didn't keep it. So that was my first channeled writing. And what they told me was that they were going to go away for a while and they would come back at another time when I was ready, when I had lived more. And it seemed to be that I was going to experience some kind of something that I needed to maybe not be in contact with spirit for. And they were correct. I ended up running away from home and, needing to take care of myself and take care of more mundane things like, where do I live? I need a job. I need to still go to school, all these things at a really, really young age. So from the time I was 15 till about 23, all these things that I had experienced as a child were in the back of my mind, but I started to feel like, well, maybe I made that up. Maybe I was a kid and I thought that was happening and it wasn't really happening. And just when I started to have those thoughts, it started to reopen. So I started to have dreams, and rather than the voices coming back the way that I heard them as a child, I would have dreams where these beings would be hovering above me and talking about my progress. And I remember one dream, I was in a fish tank with all these beautiful fish around me. And I was walking in the tank, and these three beings were over the tank saying, she's almost ready. And I thought, what are they talking about? And somehow I came across Sanaya Roman's book, Open to Channel. That was the first book that I ever read on channeling. And I still didn't quite get what channeling was, but I did do all the exercises in the book. So I did all the exercises in the book, and I remember, finishing the book, and I was still, kind of going through my life doing regular things. I was waitressing and just doing regular 23-year-old things. And then a friend of mine her and I decided to go to Palm Springs for the weekend. And to this day, what I'm about to tell you is the most magical thing that has ever happened in my entire life. I've had lots of spiritual experiences now, and this one still blows my mind to this day. So we went to Palm Springs, and before we went out, we went to our little condo that we were staying in, and it was a friend's condo. And this friend had told us that nobody lived next door to us, and so we shouldn't hear anyone, attached to our wall, basically. And so we were in the condo, and my friend pulled out a deck of tarot cards. So at this time, I didn't tell anybody that I was psychic. I did still know that I was psychic. That part never went away. And I had never told her this. She said, I don't know why I have these, and I'm supposed to give them to you. So I took the cards, and I had never used anything like that before. And she said, just try to do a reading on me, see what happens. So I did. I just kind of laid the cards out, and I did get some messages, but I didn't know if they were correct or anything like that. I put the cards away, and then we went out. We had dinner. We were kind of having drinks a little bit, and then she said she didn't feel very good and wanted to go back to the condo. So on the way back to the condo, a presence filled the car. And I knew it was a spiritual presence. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know why it was happening, but I didn't say anything because I was used to kind of hiding this part of me. So throughout my life, if I was experiencing a spiritual presence or something, I tended to not say anything, to say anything to the person that I was with. So I didn't. And she started to recount her childhood and kind of give me she was kind of just going through something. And she became emotional in the car. And I didn't know why this was happening. I thought, okay. I listened to her. We got back to the condo, and I parked the car. We got out of the car, and the condo next to us that we were told no one lived in, 5 people walked out of this condo. Now, this is the strange part. They all walked by the 2 of us, and they only said hi to my friend. And it was not until after they walked by that I noticed, wait a minute, they couldn't even see me. So I thought it was weird that all 5 of them said hi to her, nothing to me. And then I realized that it was because they couldn't see me. I just thought that was very strange. And just so you know, I tend to see spirit in here. I will feel where spirit is in the room, but I tend to see the picture of them in my mind. It is not very often in my life that I have seen spirits outside of myself, although I have, one of them being my father, and a handful of times I've seen them very solidly outside of me, but it isn't typical for me. And nonetheless, in the middle of the day like this. So I thought, okay, that's weird. We went into the condo, closed the door, and my friend just started to cry, and she sat on the bed, and now her hands are up like this, and she's telling me that she can see her grandmother. She was saying some other things. At the same time, multiple hands start knocking on the door. And I knew without a doubt it was the people that we just saw outside. I got really nervous and scared. I went to the door and I looked through the peephole, and nobody was standing there. Yet I'm still hearing this knocking, 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 but nobody's standing outside. And I knew, okay, I'm not going to open the door. I can't go outside. I have to deal with whatever this is inside. So I went back, I sat on the bed, and my friend asked me to get the cards. And by this point, her eyes are closed. And by the way, she was not in any way any sort of psychic or medium or anything like that. She was a hairdresser, actually. She believed in these things, but we had never had a conversation about it. And she was in no way developed in any way. So given that, I strongly believe that that was the only way that spirit was really able to get through to me at that time. So anyway, I give her the cards and she lays them out and she puts her hands on the cards. So she's not reading them with her eyes, and she is, her eyes are closed. And then the being that I felt in the car comes through her. So to channel, which at the time, even though I had read Sanaya Roman's book, it didn't occur to me that this was channeling. I was just kind of freaked out, to be honest with you. So this being revealed himself as being Peter, and he spoke to me for 2 hours. 2 hours. And he recounted all these childhood memories that I had never spoken to anyone about, not even my twin sister. Things that only I could remember. And I remember this one thing he said to me right away. He said, "You have a power of which you are unaware." And chills just went into my body. I didn't know what he meant. I had no idea. He was clearly talking about my channeling, but I just didn't know that. And he also talked about past lifetimes I had with my mother and my best friend that, again, I had actually seen, but never told anyone about it. So literally everything that came out of her mouth in the form of Peter was 100% accurate. And I know that it was necessary to get my attention, to really, really show me, okay, this is very, very real. So my friend tried to actually separate from the energy several times and she wasn't able to do so. And the other thing that happened, I forgot about this. Before Peter came through her, there was a suitcase on the floor. It was my friend's suitcase. The locks on the suitcase flipped open one by one. The suitcase opened and one thing at a time fell out. It was not a normal sequence of, what would normally happen is the suitcase, if it got broken or the locks broke, it would just kind of all fly open at once. That's not what happened. So that was another very strange thing that happened. Over the 2-hour event, I did become comfortable with who I was speaking to. The other thing this being said to me was that he belonged to my mother. He said, "I am your mother's guide, but she's blocked in this lifetime. And so we have to talk to you." And I knew who Peter was. I was very familiar. Peter was definitely one of the beings that used to hover over me and talk to the other beings when I was a child. So I did know that. We went to sleep. The next day, my friend was very, very tired. So when a person is not a developed trance channel, I know this now that I am a developed trance channel, that would be a very exhausting experience to have someone channel for you for 2 straight hours. So she slept for most of the day. She kind of didn't want to talk about the experience. And we talked about it a few times afterwards, but not very often at all. And I think it was an opportunity for both of us to become more open to spirit. So that friendship kind of fell apart at some point, but that was part of how I came to channel Reina. The other thing that happened on my journey with this is I also had an experience where I had taken a medicine that made my heart like beat way too fast. And I don't do well with any type of pharmaceuticals or anything like that. So I really don't take them unless I have to. And so I took something that made my heart beat too fast. And it really, really, it scared me. It actually made my nose bleed at one point. And I was begging the universe. I said, please, this is scaring me right now. And whatever my purpose is, I will do it. Just show me what my purpose is. So that event happened about 1 week prior to this other event that I just told you about. I had forgotten that. That was a very important piece. So they answered my call when I said that. So I had that experience. Then a few years went by and I still had kind of regular jobs. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with my life. And I moved to Los Angeles thinking that maybe here I can kind of, blend into a big city and figure out what I want to do. I was 25 years old, about to be 26 years old, and I began to have a lot of spiritual phenomena. So this is when my psychic part of myself started to really blast open. I was always psychic, but it became a daily occurrence for me at this point. Things I couldn't ignore and things that really made me feel like I didn't want to be in the world in the same way because it was too much for me. I also began channeling in my sleep. So before Reina, so this is all before Reina, by the way. So I've channeled about 22 different entities before Reina during the process leading up to channeling Reina. So there were different beings that were coming through me, mostly when I was sleeping, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with, someone talking through me. Again, I had kind of forgotten about, what channeling was, even though, again, I read that book. I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm channeling right now. I was thinking more along the lines of, oh, am I crazy? Is this what happens to people, that are schizophrenic? I had those thoughts going through my head. So but all along I knew that that is not what it was. I knew that. So I sought out a medium at the time. I had a bartending job at this time. And there was a man that used to come in and he asked me, are you spiritual, Lori? And I looked at him and I said, in ways that you can't even imagine. And he asked me if I would go see somebody that was psychic. And I said, absolutely, I would. And prior to this, I had opened up a magazine at a magazine stand in Los Angeles. And I just happened to open up to the middle of it. In the middle of the page was this woman, and her name was Sherry Mancuso. And I remember thinking, oh, I would love to see a psychic, but she's probably too expensive for me. So I didn't really seek it out. So the man gave me this woman's phone number. I did not at the time realize that it was the same person I had seen in the magazine. I called her, I made the appointment, and I couldn't believe it when I drove to her house. I looked up the directions. In my apartment complex where I parked my car, if I had to just climb the fence, I would have been in her backyard. That's how close she lived to me. So I went, she opened the door for me, and she started laughing right away. She said, you are a psychic, you are a channel, you are a healer, you're a medium, and someday you're going to do all of these things. And I said to myself, this makes no sense to me. I know I'm psychic, but it really is just a hazard right now. And she gave me a reading, and that was the biggest thing that I took from that, was that I would have these different abilities. And I remember saying to her, and then also just to myself, I thought about it, this is really unfair. I don't know how to develop any of these abilities. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. So all she really did, she taught me how to meditate really effectively. And to this day, she taught me basic chakra clearings and things like that. But it was the first step to really honing the abilities and healing. So part of what was happening to me in the middle of the night and why I was channeling is a lot of the abuse that I experienced as a child I had a single mother that had a disability, and I have forgiven her for many things at this point, and we have a much better relationship now that she's on the other side, but she just was not really capable of raising twins with her disability. So my healing was trying to come through, and at the same time, my abilities were trying to show themselves. And I have never forgotten that sandwich of things. When your psychic abilities open, when your spiritual abilities open, your healing opens. And you have to go through it. You can't just develop the fun part of the psychic abilities and ignore the healing. It doesn't really work that way. It pushes up to the surface what you need to heal in this lifetime. And then that is what really helps to develop your abilities. So that's what was happening to me. So to make a long story a little bit shorter, I became a clairvoyant at that point. So I worked with her for a while. I began to do readings professionally. The first place I ever worked at was a psychic eye in Los Angeles. I also did readings privately. And I started to get these messages about needing to move back to Orange County, which is where I was from. So I did that, and I was told Laguna Hills, and I would write these things down sometimes. The other thing that happened, I was sleeping one night in my apartment in Los Feliz, and I had this 3 CD player where you would put 3 CDs in. There was one CD called Fairy of the Woods that I love to listen to. And this CD player started turning itself on in the middle of the night. It would play only that CD, and then it would turn itself off. It started happening at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And at this point, I was just fascinated by the process. It didn't really scare me or anything. I just thought, oh, okay, this is fascinating. And then twice I woke up because this woman flew up to my face. I could feel the air on my face. And she said, Lori, like that. And now I know that that was Reina. At the time, I did not know who that was, just that the spirit woke me up. So she was really pushing me to move back to Orange County. I also had a best friend whose mother suggested I go do readings at a psychic bookshop in Laguna Hills. So I followed that advice. I went there, and I started doing readings at Awakenings, which now is my bookstore that I own with my husband. So I didn't know at the time that was going to be my husband. So he is also a channel. And the first day that I worked at this store, this being kept walking behind me back and forth. And he said that his name was Elijah, and that he belonged to Brandon, who was the bookstore owner that is now my husband. So I went into the office and I said, there's a being that was walking behind me that says his name is Elijah. And he said, and he turned around and he said, what? He said, that's my unseen friend. And I said, oh, okay. And he suggested at the time that I train with someone named Sean Randall, who ended up being my channeling teacher, again in Los Angeles. So I found myself driving up to LA every week for a whole year, and I was able to hone my ability and bring Reina in that way. So that whole story, just to tell you that that was how I came to channel Reina. So by the time I took my channeling class, I was a very developed intuitive and a healer. So I was starting to do healings at that point. Doing those things professionally, getting training for those things as well, really helped me to, I think, develop my intuition far enough to then allow in the channeling. So what I want to say about this, for those of you, some of you are interested in channeling, which is why you're even watching this video. Channeling, the process of channeling is really to develop a deep, intimate relationship to your inner spirit teacher, as Reina likes to call them, guides, whatever your name or word is for it, and also to your higher self. So even in the channeling class, I did not think that I was going to be a channel. That was not my intention. I just wanted to heal. I wanted to develop whatever I was supposed to develop with my already clairvoyant ability, and help myself with my career. So within the channeling class and being able to develop that deep relationship to Reina, she was the one that revealed to me that I was going to be a channel, and we would be channeling for other people, which was a shock to me, actually. But here we are. I am 44 years old as of this video. So I took this channeling class when I was 30. So 14 going on 15 years. So about 14 and a half years, I have been channeling Reina, and it is wonderful. It makes sense to me. It ties everything else together with my healing and, the way that we teach and everything. But anyway, that is my story of how I came to channel Reina. So I hope you enjoy it, and I look forward to answering any other questions that you have. You can email us at support@reinateachings.com with any questions you have, either for me or for Reina. So sometimes I will have Reina answer questions, and sometimes I will come on and answer questions. I realized that a lot of channels, we tend to be a little shy, and it's easy to go into trance and just let our beings do all the work. So I don't want to do that. I would like to get to know you and tell you some of my stories, and maybe some of the things that you're interested in as far as spirituality, and some of my own knowledge. So anyway, again, subscribe, like us to help us to continue to make videos for you, and I look forward to the next one.